We are on 0-5 multiplying and dividing rational numbers found on P17 and goes through P19. P17 is this, 0-5 multiplying and dividing rational numbers. Before we get into anything further, we need to go ahead and define reciprocal. Reciprocal means that we flip what we see. If I have -1/3, I flip that, so then it would be -3/1, which is the same thing as -3. Reciprocal means that we flip what we see. If I have a whole number, 5, I would put 5/1. I would flip that and say 1/5 is the reciprocal. Here are our notes. Multiplying and dividing decimals and negative numbers. In order to find out if an answer will be negative or positive when multiplying or dividing numbers and fractions, I must count how many negative signs I see. And I've already taught this, but I'm reiterating what I taught. If I count an even number of negative signs, then my answer is positive. If I count an odd number of negative signs, my answer is negative. So I've taught this. Just like I said before, -1 all this time. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My answer would be -1 because there is an odd number of negative signs. So I've already taught that, so it works the same even with decimal numbers as well as fractions. We taught you this in pre-algebra. I need you to remember that we always, remember that we do not line up our decimals when multiplying or dividing decimals. We do not, like we would adding and subtracting. When we multiply decimal numbers, we actually count how many numbers are behind the decimals. We count how many numbers are behind the decimals, and that is how many times we move our decimal at the end. That's actually how many times we move our decimal at the end. We do not line up our decimals. When dividing decimals, I will actually allow you to use a calculator when we're dividing larger numbers. Here we go. Example 1. Make sure that you are following along in your book. Example 1. It says find each product or quotient. The first thing I do is I count how many negative signs I have. I have one negative sign, one is odd, so my answer needs to be negative. Then I need to count how many numbers are after the decimal. There are 2 numbers after the decimal, which means we are going to move that many places at the end. Now I can take 72 times 2, that's 414, so I'm at 144. My answer is negative, and I move the decimal to the left twice, because that is how many numbers are after the decimal. Letter B. I have 2 large numbers in which I need to divide. The first thing is I want you to understand, is it positive or negative? I have 2 negative signs, 2 is even, so my answer needs to be positive. Then I will allow you to use a calculator for something like this. 23.94 divided by 10.5, we get 2.28. And that's exactly what they got in the book. So I'm not going to worry about dividing large decimal numbers. Now we can move on to multiplying, dividing fractions and negative numbers. Remember, when multiplying and dividing fractions, I must always change my mixed numbers to improper fractions by multiplying the whole number by the denominator and add that to the numerator. I actually call this the check mark method. So I'm going to put a check mark to the side. That's what I mean, and I'll show you in a second. When dividing fractions, I must multiply by the reciprocal. What I just taught you, the reciprocal. So we actually flip. That's why we taught you to keep, change, flip, because we actually multiply our reciprocal. We're going to flip that. And we always reduce when possible. We always reduce when possible. Example 2. This is found in your book. Example 2 is still on P17. On example 2, we skip letter A and we'll go with letter B. We have 3/5 times 1 1/2. 3/5 times, and I'm going to go ahead and check mark. Or we change our mixed number to an improper by multiplying the whole number with the denominator. 1 times 2 is 2, and then we add that to our numerator. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. We always keep the denominator the same. Now we can multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 2 is 10. I cannot reduce. That is my answer. Letter C. I just need to multiply across because they're two fractions. So, 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 9, 36. But I can reduce, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce by dividing by 2. I get 1 over 18. If I divide the top number, I have to divide the bottom number. Example 3. Count your negative signs first. I have one negative sign, so I'm going to put negative. Now I can multiply across. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 8 is 32. I cannot reduce. That is my answer. Example 4. Name the reciprocal of each number. The reciprocal means to flip. If I have 3 over 8, that becomes 8 over 3. That's it. Every time I have a mixed number, I need to change that to an improper. So I would take 2 times 5 plus 4. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Keep the denominator the same. Now I can flip this and it becomes 5 over 14, and that would be my reciprocal. Now we are on example 5. On example 5, we are actually dividing now, which means find each quotient. Quotient means division. In order to find the quotient of two fractions, what we do is we multiply by the reciprocal. We change the division to a multiplication. We keep the first fraction the same, and we flip. We find the reciprocal of the second, 2 over 1. Now this is multiplication. We multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. That is my answer. Keep, change, flip. Over here, keep 3/4. Division becomes multiplication. And then we check mark and we change our mixed number to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Keep the denominator the same. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 2 is 8. This is the first time that we see an improper fraction. If we have an improper fraction, we want to change it back to a mixed number. So we do the opposite. Instead of multiply, we divide. Top number in, bottom number out. 8 goes to 15 once. 1 times 8 is 8. That leaves me with 7. I would have 1 and 7/8, just like we taught you last year. Okay? Now we are on letter D. We are on letter D. Okay? I actually made a mistake on letter C. I apologize. Guess what I forgot to do? This is why we write in pencil. What I forgot to do is go ahead and flip our fraction. So this would actually be 3/4 times 2/5. This would be 6. This would be 20. 6 over 20. I even forgot to flip my second part. I apologize. So now we can go ahead and reduce this. Divide by 3, divide by 3. I get 2 over, or sorry, not divide by 3. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. I get 3 over 10. I apologize for that. That is my answer. Now we are to letter D. Letter D, we count our negative signs. We actually have 2 negative signs. 2 negative signs make it positive, so now I don't have to deal with my signs anymore. I know it's going to be positive, so I don't need to deal with my signs. I have 1 over 5. Instead of divide, we multiply by the reciprocal. I'm going to go ahead and flip this 10 over 3. I don't have my negatives anymore because I already know it's going to be positive, so my answer is going to be positive. 1 times 10 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. I can reduce by 2. No, sorry. I can reduce by 5. And I get 2 over 3. That is my final answer with that.